Lately, there have been several cases of solicitations or PR done with major news entities like USA Today, spoiling comics. A recent kind of very classic example was the Batman non-wedding in Batman 50 by Tom King got spoiled in USA Today. This comes after weeks of Tom King insisting that no, there really would be a wedding. So why do companies do this? And why are these spoilers happening? And how detrimental are they really? Hey everybody, this is Perch. I think spoilers are an interesting thing, and in a lot of cases, comics are they have a struggle, and the struggle is this. There are people who need to know what's coming out in advance. Those people are the retailers, and the people ordering the comics need to know what's happening, say, 4 or 5 months from now. Ideally, the retailers would know what's happening like 12 months from now so they could plan and prepare and get issues and maximize their business. Unfortunately, retailers also talk. So in the past, when publishers have let retailers in on their plans, retailers have scanned things, they've talked to websites. I mean, classically, that's where Bleeding Cool has gotten several of their scoops. The scoop is some retailer calls them and tells them something, and they print it. That's I never consider that a scoop. It just sounds like you made friend with somebody who is willing to leak information. Anyway, there's been lots of that, and so over time, what you've seen is less and less information in the solicits. The solicits are really kind of nonsense flavor text half the time. They're usually wrong. We've gone over that before, and so they're not very helpful for that purpose. And the comic publishers, when they want to get the word out, they want to build some excitement around a storyline or something else. And in some cases, if you're Marvel and DC, the corporate offices of AT&T and T and Disney, they want to see you doing a certain amount of publicity. They want to see you doing PR. And I know it. I don't know for sure on the DC side, but I know for sure on the Marvel side that the corporate, the folks at Disney have prodded at various times to get news out. And the challenge of that is then you're giving news out. You got to give USA Today something juicy. You can't give them, like, hey, it's not news to say there may be a wedding in Batman 50 that's out in 2 days, and hey, it might be good. The news agency would not, so they need actual, news. Unlike Bleeding Cool, they actually want, a actual scoop. They want actual something newsworthy in order to print it. And so the comic publishers reveal this information, and in a lot of cases, it seems to irritate more people than it sells or helps. Case in point, Batman 50, despite the protests, after the fact, was a kind of masterclass in screwing it up. The company, DC in particular, went really hard into there's definitely going to be a wedding, definitely for sure. Tom King was a little more cagey, but still he stepped over the line and in going further than he should have. In hindsight, I think if he was being honest with himself, he would admit he said some things that probably locked in more than it should have. And then the article comes out of like, hey, there's not going to be a wedding before the issue is there. And the irritation was in every direction. It was, I didn't want to be spoiled from the fans who are getting this stuff coming at them from a different direction. I mean, if you've got an iPhone and you've got Apple News, then these headlines are popping up there. You wouldn't expect to go to Apple News and see a spoiler for a comic book coming out in 2 days. That's hardly you leaning into something. And then and these things like Batman left at the altar. It's like, that's no good. And then I think some other news agencies were actually given the story that there would be a wedding for sure. So they were also pissed and they were motivated to get information out there. But so all around, nobody was happy about this at all. It hit everyone the wrong way. But one of the reasons, and the other thing that you're noticing over the years, if you've been tracking this over the last, say, 10 years, the publishers are getting more and more, I guess, bullish about spoilers. They're putting out more than they used to, and they're, a little bit more casually, a little bit more recklessly. And in some cases, it feels like one of the reasons they're doing that, or maybe have to do it, is they've lost a lot of the confidence in the readership to just stick with the story and be surprised and enjoy what's there. The readership at this point is kind of cynical about a lot of things comics, and it's like this self-perpetuating problem where the information's not coming out through the direct source. It's leaking out through through news channels and things that are, have nothing to do with comics. It spoils the comic, it irritates the readers and the fans, and it further isolates people, so then they have to do more of it in order to get attention for their books, and this just continues, and the end result is, I mean, it creates a further and further gap. The problem I see that happens right now with comics is there's a really big gap between the publishers and the creators and their stories and kind of these bigger ideas they have, and the fans who are looking for something, in many cases, just very different. They're looking for an entertaining story. They're looking for some shocks, some thrills, but they're not looking for kind of earth-shaking, status quo changing things. But the publisher, in order to get attention, sometimes from the media that doesn't buy the comics anyway, but is important to their kind of corporate overlords there, um, continues to push these stories and these ideas out there that big earth-shaking things are happening. They're talking to not their comic audience, but they are maybe talking to the people who pay the bills, and or pay their checks, I should say, not the bills. Um, and it's just creating a bad loop. Unfortunately, the missing element in all this is there really needs to be some fan driven news or sites that can really take this and bring something really positive to comics, bring positive news, bring interviews, bring all the rest. The challenge is you don't have many of those. You have some really big YouTubers who do interviews and other things, but they're seen as compromised by the majority of fans. They're not seen as reliable sources, and that's a problem with a lot of the news sites, is that they're seen, these sites are viewed as shills in a lot of cases, which in some cases they are, because the publishers will not give them information if they say anything critical. Now, I'm not talking critical like accusations that the editors are hired for sex. I'm talking critical like, oh, this storyline wasn't very good, or hey, why did this artist change mid issue? That really kind of ruined the issue. I'm talking, valid criticism, or things that anyone would think, not rumor mongering, not crazy, bile that kind of goes out. I'm talking about just basic stuff. But in particular, I like Marvel gets really. I mean, they'll just drop you. You play ball their rules, or you're gone. They view these sites, they view places like that as shills. They're shills. They're extension of their public relations arm. They'll hand things when they want. DC plays a little nicer, or doesn't care. I can't quite tell. It's one or the other. Either they ignore it and they don't really care, or maybe they just play a little nicer. But either way, but still not good. Not to the level it needs to be. And this is really important because you've got this kind of three-legged stool missing a leg. You've got the fans who are ready to consume comics information. You've got the publishers who are out there trying to push books and do other things, and then you have this missing element in between that connects the two with news and information and other things. The vehicles we have right now are like Twitter, which is a garbage fire. You have videos and channels like this one, like mine, and others that are at times critical, at times crazy critical, at times just all over the place, or very kind of soulless. I'm going to review a comic, and it just not doing the job of really connecting these dots, and so it's a tough situation. I think spoiling comics and putting these storylines out in the press has definitely eroded a lot of reader confidence. I think that it's hurt sales a lot more than it's helped. I think that I know that there's a lot of people who had a backlash against Tom King and everything he did, but I think probably the biggest sting for a lot of kind of the mainstream fans, if you will, was that it was that issue 50. It was that whole sequence of events of there will be a wedding. I promise. Hey, there's a bunch of tie-in issues to the wedding, special wedding event, comic shops. You can do a wedding party. And then the article drops, hey, there won't be a wedding. Ha ha ha. And then there wasn't a wedding. I like that sequence of events, I think, really just toxified, if that's a word, King and his run to kind of the this middle, this silent majority that got pretty pissed, and so it was all avoidable. All of that was avoidable by just having a tighter relationship with what was going on and putting things out. But I don't know. What do you think? Leave me a comment below. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter or Facebook. Although I'm spending less time on both. They're both nuts. Or send me an email at comicsperch@gmail.com. And thanks for listening.